Hello, everybody. This is the old bear from the old bear's den of Bigfoot. Got a couple of stories here we're going to give to you for Thanksgiving. Uh, Probably be out late this evening. Um, but I wanted to give y'all some stories because, well, we haven't been here for a while. Uh, Everything going on, dad passing and all that. So I thought we should do you at least a couple of them. One of them's here in West Virginia, and uh, the other one is I kind of really don't want to say where it's at because of what happened and what went on. It's a little tough to talk about. Uh, the gentleman's having trouble in the second one, and it's not good. Anyway, the first one happened in 1979 here in West Virginia near a town called Siebert, West Virginia. Young man was out deer hunting. They had snow on that year. Uh, he had crawled back up in a hole uh, that he had dug out in the snow. Perfect camouflage. It was right next to a state park and a national forest. Now you can hunt on a national forest, but the park you couldn't. But they would, you know, have people walk through and push the deer out of the park because that's where they would go out of the forest and hide in the park because you couldn't hunt in the park. So the deer knew there wasn't nobody in there, so that's what went on. Anyway, he had dug him out a hole in the snowbank and he crawled up in it. And he was staying pretty warm and toasty in there, actually. Snow insulates. And he saw this gentleman walking out of the walking out in front of him from the forest, from the state park over into the national forest. And he was cut. He was wearing a fur suit, is what he thought. Well, this thing kept walking and kept coming closer and closer, and he had he finally got in front of him, and the thing looked over at him, and he knew it wasn't a person because it didn't have a human face. It had a face that you could automatically tell that it wasn't a human being. And he said he started to raise his rifle, and then something told him, said, "Don't shoot. Just don't shoot." And after that, he lowered his rifle. This thing nodded its head at him and then walked off. Well, as soon as this thing got out of sight, he got out of there and he left, and he didn't. He went down and for years he didn't know exactly what it was, but he started hearing about about Bigfoot and the Boggy Creek and stuff like that, and then he knew what it was. He knew it was a Bigfoot. So, I mean, what more can you say about it? He's 17 years old at the time, in 79. So you do the math and figure out how old he is now. And he told me about it, and he's never told anyone else about this. And he's a good Christian man, and I believe his story, and I believe what he said. So take it for what it is. Leave your comments about this one, and we'll get started on the second one. Thank you. All right, everybody. The second one we have for you today comes out of all places, northern Iowa. Now, What happened to this guy was very weird. Started out weird. He had this gentleman and his two brothers owned this farm, and they just use it to run some cattle on and to deer hunt. Now, he was the primary one that deer hunted on the property. And as he deer hunted on the property, he'd been hunting on it, ever since his mom and dad passed away, and it got left to the boys. Well, he's an older gentleman. He probably in his late 40s, getting close to that 50 mark. And what happened was, a couple of years, he started, late in the evening, he would hear strange noises. But they would always be way off, when he was done hunting for the day. It was always way off, not near his deer stands. So, he really never paid any attention to it. And he, well, finally, after a couple of years, he got into his favorite deer stand. It's a big deer stand for a guy. He bow hunts out of it. It's about 18 feet off the ground. And in fact, I have one here on my property, and where I deer hunt all the time, and turkey hunt and do all that with. But he was in his deer stand one morning. It was pretty cool. It was just last month, near the end of the month, in October. And, well, he's sitting in his deer stand and he felt his foot get pulled off from the footrest in the deer stand. Now, that's not good. And he couldn't pull his foot back up. He thought maybe, his foot just slipped off or something. He moved in the stand or whatever and his foot slipped off the footrest. Well, he couldn't put his foot back. So he reached in his shirt pocket and he pulled out his flashlight. Well, he turned his flashlight on and looked right down at his foot, and there was this big, hairy hand, bigger than his foot is long, holding his foot. At that point, he took the flashlight and followed down the arm and got to the face and put the light right in the face. Well, that thing went and took off running over the hill. He said he could hear this thing run for at least 300 yards. And then it went up and over the hill. It skylined itself as it went over the hill, and he said it looked man-like. The shadow, the figure that he saw, he couldn't tell a lot of detail because it was still a little bit dark. But it skylighted itself. And he said that thing had to be huge to reach him at 18 foot up in a tree. Said its arm was fully extended, but that thing had to be probably close to 10 foot, he would say, maybe 12 foot tall. Now, there's a lot of woods on their property, and they have cows on their property. Well, after that, he waited till daylight. He got out of his tree stand, and he went back to his pickup. Went to his side-by-side that he has, and went to the pickup. Took all of his stuff with him. Said he was going to go home. Well, he never went home. So he didn't go home. He drove to town, got him something to eat, and there's a small town near the farm. He's probably 45 minutes from the farm to his house. And he tried calling one of his brothers to see if he would come out. Never got a hold of him. And he went back up there. For some unknown reason, after loading the side-by-side and putting all of his stuff away, he decided that he wasn't going to let this thing run him off from deer hunting. So he decided he was going to go to the other side of the property, near where it butts up against a neighbor's property, and he was going to hunt in that stand. Now it's pretty thick in there, and he just decided that he was going to hunt. He just said, "I'm going to carry both my pistols with me." He said he had a 40 caliber and a 380 that he carried with him in his pickup when he went hunting. So he decided to take both handguns and the clips that he had for it, load them up, and if one of them things come up there, he was going to shoot it. Well, he didn't know how much true that was going to be. So here's what happened to the second part of his day. He went into tree stand an hour and a half. So he got in there about 1:30 something till 2. So around 3:30, he heard some weird noise going on up there where the cattle were kept in a pasture field that was filled with alfalfa and clover and Timothy. All those are hays that you feed, cows, horses, and stuff in the wintertime. But those cows and the calves that they had and the bull that was up there were all up there making all kinds of racket, bawling, squalling, everything else. So he got out of the tree stand. He went up there to the field to see what was going on. And when he got up there, he couldn't believe his eyes. 4 of the calves that they'd had in the spring that he was getting ready to, that weekend, to take out of there and sell at market were laying there dead. 4 calves, not full grown cows, 4 calves, 150, 200 pound, something like that, somewhere around there, 150 pounds, 200 pound calves. Just had that year. I've not dealt with cows, so I don't know how big they get in a year. All of them were laying there on their side with their heads turned up. Their nose was stuck up in the air. He went over there, and those 4 cows were laying there, those calves, and he kicked them and their necks were broke. Now, this scared the daylights out of him. He didn't know what happened, so he was going to get out of there and go to his truck. And as he went to his truck, he heard something scream. That scream that he's been hearing at night. Not all the time, but every once in a while he would hear a scream. Well, that scream came from down in the holler below that field. This thing screamed at him. Then it showed itself. And then it decides it's going to run up the hill at him and charge at him from 100 yards or more away. Don't sound too fun, does it? So he gets up there, he's standing there and he's got a bow in his hand, and he drops the bow and pulls out his 380. That's the first one that he grabbed. I guess he had it in a pocket, and he just grabbed one out of his pockets, one in each pocket. I wasn't there, so I just have to go on what the man told me. Said he grabbed the 380 and emptied it. Dropped the clip, put another clip in it, and emptied it again. Then he shoved it into his pocket. The 2 clips were laying there on the ground at his feet, and this thing stops. He pulls out the 40 caliber that he had on his hip. The 380 was a small one, so it was a little gun, and he just didn't grab the one off his hip. I don't know why. It doesn't make sense to me, but I'd have grabbed the big one first. These things are pretty big. But he grabbed the 40, and this thing was probably, he said, maybe 40 yards away at this point. And it standing there, started growling at him, baring its teeth, swaying back and forth, trying to work up the to keep coming, because he done empty 2 clips of this thing. It had to stop, because you start firing a gun at anything, and it usually stops it. Start firing a gun at a person, it stops him. But he's just he's just he's beside himself. He doesn't know what to do. He don't know. He just shot 2 clips of 380 at this thing, and it never even bothered it. Well, 380 ain't much of a handgun. 40 ain't much better, unless you hot load them, and then it'll do something. But that's what he was dealing with, and this thing. Finally, he just got tired of standing there watching this thing sway back and forth, and grab tree limbs and break them off, and working up itself into a lather, and that's his words. And he fired 2 rounds of that 40 at it at about 30 yards, and I guess he may have hit it in the shoulder, because the shoulder on the thing went back, and it squalled in pain and turned and ran back down into the hollow where it came out of, back into the brush and everything else. Why he didn't keep shooting, I don't know. I asked him that, and he said, I can't explain it. He said, I just shot twice and hit it once, and I think I hit it once, and its shoulder moved, and it squalled in pain, and turned and ran off from me. Now, whenever that happened, he said, I grabbed my bow up, put my 40 back in my holster, didn't clip his holster closed, went down to the truck, dropped the trailer off the truck, put his side by side at a little building that they have there, a little shed, shoved it, rode it up into there, got off, took his bow, put it just set it in the seat of the truck, and dropped the trailer off where he runs his side by side, pulls it back home every time. He pulled that off the truck, called his brothers. And by this time, it's starting to get dark. Well, whenever he was sitting there, his brothers told him, said, we'll be out there in a little bit. We'll be loaded, ready for bear or whatever. I don't know. It's not the same as a bear. They're kind of scary. They're big. They're ugly. And if anybody thinks they're cute, we need to have a talk. Anyway, he's waiting on his brothers, and his truck shakes. And he's thinking, what the heck? Did I leave the gate open? Did the cows get out? What happened? He's thinking one of the cows came down. After dealing with one of these things, and you think a cow comes down? Don't make sense. But that's, people think that way sometimes when they're under stress. Anyway, he gets out, and he's got his truck running, and the lights are on. And when he gets out, one of these things is standing a few feet behind the truck, stops, turns around, looks at him in the light of the brake lights, and his cab light came on. That's on the top of the cab. And he's looking at this thing, and he didn't even have a gun on him. He left it in a truck. He took them off. And why, I don't know. But he did. Anyway, it doesn't make sense. It's just, you're dealing with these things, you get out of your vehicle, you better have a gun on you, no matter what you're doing. Even if you got 15 guys standing there and they're heavily armed, you still need to get out of your own vehicle with a gun. So he's standing there, and this thing just turns and walks away from me. Walks over into the little bit of woods that's right there next to the shed, near the shed. And his brothers pull up almost as soon as this thing hit the woods, his brothers pull up, and they got their high beams on, and they get out of their trucks, and they're trying to get something out of their brother. What's going on? What are you having a problem with? What just tell us. And one of the brothers that got there in the truck looked up in front of the headlights and saw 6 sets of eyes that were glowing back at them in the headlights. He said, "Guys, do you see what I see?" Both of them looked up and they saw those 6 sets of eyes. Didn't have to say a word. Everybody got back in their vehicle. They got out of there. They turned around, got out of there, and they hadn't went back. So for a month now, he's not been back to his property. Neither have his 2 brothers. So tell me what you think. And if you want to leave a comment, tell me what you would have done differently than what he did. I know what I would have not done. After that thing grabbed my foot. So you tell me from that point on what you would have done differently. I hope y'all enjoy these 2 stories, and we're going to get off here and go have some turkey, and I hope everybody has a wonderful and very happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy your families. Enjoy the day together, and tell your governors to kiss your butt and go enjoy your family. I don't care if there's 50 of you together. It's better to be there with your family and have time together, because you never know when someone might go home to be with the Lord. So I'm going to get off here because I'm starting to get a little teared up because I don't have my dad this Thanksgiving. I don't have my hero. It's tough, really tough. But thank you guys for all your support, and y'all enjoy Thanksgiving with your families. And I hope it's a wonderful time for each and every one of you. You all deserve it. May God bless you all and your families. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.